We're finishing the Perik Afapi. We're talking about the obligation that a husband has to his wife, what he has to provide for her. We spoke about what her obligations are to him. And we're up to the very bottom of the page, down on base in the bottom. The Naisin law, he also has to give her chatzi kav kidney. He has to give her a half a kav, the measure of kav, which is 3 egg worth of a kav is 4 loigin, each loig is 6 eggs, so that's 24 eggs. So half a kav is 12 eggs worth of kidneys of legume. These are all for her to provide her with what her needs. The Eliyain like Tana, mentioned a word about wine. So we'll have a discussion now whether women should drink wine and whether a husband has an obligation to provide her with wine. Says the Gemara, who doesn't mention wine, Messiah, this actually supports Rabbi Loza said, that you should not, you don't have to, and you shouldn't, he says. You shouldn't actually distribute wine to a woman because it coaxes her into having intimacy. You can tell me there's a passage where it says, a woman says, I will go, I'll go after my beloved. The one who provides me with bread and made my water, somebody my wool, a pished my linen, and shamni my oil, the shikuya, and my drink, shikuya is mashka. That's what we call mashka. So we definitely gave alcohol. Says the Gemara, Dvorim she'isha Mr. Kekizlan. The word shikuya doesn't necessarily mean drink. It means something that she desires. And that's where mashka comes from, interesting. It means something that we intensely desire. Or my kneel, for a woman, it doesn't mean, like for us, it would mean mashka. But for her, it would mean tachshit. What does she desire most? Nice clothes, jewelry, and all that. Things that adorn her. So therefore he says you don't have to give wine to your wife. You shouldn't. Said others say how do you know how do you know that you don't actually give wine to your wife? She never says and you have no obligation. It says by Chana, which we're going to read about, or the whole subject of Chana on Rosh Hashanah, that she didn't have any children. But Tokom Chana achre ochle b'shila, and she stood up after she ate in Shila, but achre shosei, and after he drank. Shosei is written after he drank. But like shosas, if we were talking about her, she ate. He should have said achre ochlos when she ate. He should have said achre shosas after she drank. Achre shosas is after he drank. Why does it say after he drank? So, but therefore, it must be because she didn't drink wine. Women don't drink wine. It's uncommon for women to drink wine, and therefore there's no obligation for the husband to actually give her any wine. So if you're going to be dashed that way, so if you could be so pedantic, then it says, oh, she ate, sounds like she ate and he didn't eat. What, men don't eat food? Well, he didn't eat. So says, the same thing, you're going to come to the same conclusion that men don't eat? No. Anan with the shanin krabet come in. The issue here is talking about her that she ate, and then when it comes to drink, suddenly we change from her to him. We're focusing on him. What happened here? We're talking about her, and that's we're continuing. My time is shani. Why did it change from her to him? One must conclude that he is the only one who drank, and not her. Makes you ask you a question. It says. Regila, it says in the Brisa, Regila, that if she's accustomed to drinking wine, nice like to give her wine. It's clearly that women that drink wine. It says Regila shiny. If a woman is accustomed to drinking wine, so therefore it's nothing novel to her, and therefore it doesn't affect her in the same way as what we were talking about before. A woman drinks wine and she sort of get very intimate and all that. Regila, if she's used to it. You give her 1 cup of wine. If she's not used to it, you give her 2 cups. That doesn't make sense. She's not used to it, you give her nothing. My karma, what exactly does it mean? Says, that's what he meant. Regular, she's used to it. If they buy in front of her husband, you give 2 cups. If she's accustomed to drinking wine, so therefore doesn't so her husband's present, then she feels very amorous, her husband's there. So you give her 2 cups. So like this, if the husband's not around, then you give her 1 cup. This is what you have to give her. If she's unaccustomed, then only 1 cup. If her husband's not around, then she shouldn't be drinking any wine at all. Or I could say, Regila, if she's accustomed to it, then not only do you give her wine to drink, but national tzikik data, you also give wine to mix into her food to give taste and flavor to her food. And we actually had before that wine is also good Okay, we'll see you later. We're just going to show that people use wine even for cooking, and some people like that very much, and very very elegant recipes. Maise the kalosa shel Nagdim Ben Gurion, the daughter-in-law of Nagdim Ben Gurion, shepashku o chachamim. And Nagdim Ben Gurion, we're learning more. Gittin was one of the wealthiest people, the three rich people in Shalayim. He was one of them, fabulously wealthy. And the Chachamim decided to give to his daughter-in-law sasayim yain, the equivalent of 2 sayim of wine, and a saw has 4 kavim, and 2 sayim, 8 kavim, and each kav has is 24 eggs. So we're talking about 198 eggs of wine, which you would think is a lot. Let's seek data in order to mix it to cook him at Shabbos on Friday night. And she was very upset because she was accustomed to much more. She said, and she was cursing her way. I wish the same thing happens to your daughter. She wasn't saying, she was being sarcastic. And Tana, we learned, but for a poor person, this is an unbelievable amount. So she should have said amen. But instead, Tana, we learned Shemeres Yavam. So at that stage, she was a Shemeres Yavam. She was waiting for her brother-in-law, and therefore, amen. Nobody answered amen because part of the bracha would have been that the husband should pass away and there should be Shemeres Yavam. They didn't want that. Nobody answered amen. From here, the Sfarim say, by the way, we learn out when someone gives you a bracha, you actually have to say amen. Because if you don't say amen, it's like you don't want the bracha, which is worse. Here, they had a valid reason why they didn't say amen. So one has to defend themselves. So why didn't they say amen? Is a proof from here. This is the Gemara. This is the basis of the proof. If someone gives you bracha, you must say amen. Tell we learned. Kais echad, 1 cup of wine, yafel isha is very nice for a woman. Shnayim, 2 of them, nivel makes her look. I guess in a way it's a bit it's benevolent, makes it disgraceful. Shloisha 3 tavaz or peh. She then sometimes opens up and wants intimacy, and abba. And 4 afilu chamoy tavaz b'shuk. She has no limits in how far the intimacy go. The animal pet, she doesn't care. Maybe we're talking about a woman who never drinks, so therefore she loses herself completely, and her husband is not present. Amar was Rava. Lo yishanu ela she'ezem b'Rava says she'ein ba'il ima. Her husband's not with her, so therefore, and she's very amorous. Where does she turn? I will ba'il ima less labov. Her husband with her, it doesn't matter. Says the Gemara, you tell me the husband with her, there's no cap. Well, Chana, the ba'il ima have a Chana. In the case of the story before, we learned it from Chana was the husband. Chana was there, and yet Chana didn't drink any wine. Gemara says, somebody's traveling is different. And therefore, the irony by Chana is that even though she did not drink any wine whatsoever, Eli accused her of being shikaira. Eli accused her when she was davening there. She accused her, oh, look at that drunkard. Your husband not there. When you're traveling and you're in someone else's house, then it's not a good idea to drink any wine. No, when it would have said, just like even a husband and wife shouldn't have intimacy in someone else's house. It says by Yeshkiva Baboika, says the pasuk that they again they woke up in the morning, they went to the Mishkan and they bowed down for Hashem. By Yeshuvu, they came back they went back to Haramasa, and then by Yedel Kanas Chanisha, then they had relations with Hashem, and Hashem remembered Chana and fell pregnant. So they didn't have any relations while they were Shili, they went back home. So we learned from there that when you're in Aksanya, so else a place, it's not appropriate. So same thing with wine. Says Gemara, hash to imi, only now, not before. The Gemara now tells a few stories about women with wine. This is Abaye's wife, and we learned about her in the Gemara Yavamis. And she, remember, we had the whole machlekes of 2 people to be a Catalanis. She had to lose 2 husbands or 3 husbands, but she never showing a little. And Abaye says, I'm not worried. And he married Chayma, who had 2 husbands previously, and they both passed away. And then Abaye married her, and then Abaye passed away. All right, so because he relied on the opinion of 3, and he passed away. But the truth of the matter is, remember, Abaye came from Eli, and they were cursed. So it's not really fair, even though the Gemara says it is, that to attribute it to her when Abaye had his own baggage. And who knows why it happened to Abaye. But nevertheless, Abaye, the wife of Abaye, after Abaye passed away, also came for Rava. She said to him, I want to, my husband's estate, I want from the children. I want to have food, be provided for. Pascha law, so he was a Rav, of course. Pseikli chamra, Rav outlived Abaya. Pseikli chamra, give me wine. I know Achmeni did not drink any wine. Now, everybody says the reason is because Abaya was very poor. But we actually learned in our brachas at the very end that just all the way around. That if you remember, they went to the dreamer there. They asked him to interpret the dreams, and Abaya always paid the guy a little bit, and he got positive dreams, and he's very wealthy. And Rav was one who was very poor. So later on, his fortune changed a little bit. So we don't really know that Abaya was very poor. But anyway, for whatever reason, he didn't drink wine. She said to him, I want you to know my husband Abaya used to give me wine, but shukras in large wine glasses. Kihai. And she tried to demonstrate. So she lifted her hand to show how high it is. Her sleeve rolled back. And while she was demonstrating to Rava how big the glasses were, her sleeve fell back. And Nafal Nahided Beidin, and the entire base of Medrash was illuminated. She looked so pretty, and everybody gazed. Come, Rava. Rava got so, this is an amazing Gemara. Rava stood up. All the base, he became very excited, went home. Tavel Abbas of Chizda, his wife, one of his wives was the daughter of Chizda, and he wanted to marry her as well. And she also lost her husband, so he wanted to have relations with her as well. In the middle of the day, what's going on there? Suddenly, in the middle of the day, you got all excited. You thought about me, in the middle of yeshiva. What happened here? He said to her, I want you to know that Chayma, Abayi's wife, came to the Bezin today, and whatever it is, and that's what happened. Nafka, she went out of the bus after her. She started to beat her physically with the lock, or the handle of a chest. Till she threw him out of the city of Mechuzah. She said to her, you killed already 3 husbands, including Abaya. And you want to kill more? Now my husband now is bitten by you, smitten by you, and it's no good. So get out. And she chased him out of town, and nobody stopped her. Anyway, they were just discussing it to see whether women should drink wine or not. So obviously, some didn't, some didn't. The Bisu the Rabbi Yisrael Brei Rava. Rava had a son called Rabbi Yisrael. We had him mentioned a few times in Gemara. His wife, also came Rabbi Yisrael, came before Rabbi Nechem, son of Rabbi Yisrael, which was Rabbi's Rebbe, his son. Amr, she said to him, give me food. I want you to pass, and I should get food from the state. Possible. Wine. Possible. He said to Yudaina, I know that the people of Chuzah drink wine. So it's a bit interesting. The Rava was in Mechuzah. The story before the Abaye Rava was in the city of Mechuzah, and Rava said, "Oh, Abaye had wine." Unless Abaye actually didn't live in Mechuzah, he just maybe had some properties in Mechuzah, and that's why she went to Mechuzah to collect from the state. And they themselves did not live in Mechuzah. Otherwise, how can Rava be surprised that they had wine when it just says right here that I know the people in Mechuzah, that all women that drink wine. So he gave her straight away. The visa that Rabbi Yisrael, so to see clearly from here that some didn't, depends where you were. And where they did, there was nothing wrong. And where they didn't, then drinking too much can lead to the wrong things. The visa that Rabbi Yisrael Menashe, the wife of Rabbi Yisrael Menashe, also came for Rabbi Yisrael, so she came and said, okay, my husband died, I want you to rule that I should get from the state. Pasigla, psikli chamra, wine, pasigla, psikli shirai, I also want you to give me nice clothes. Amala shirai lama. What in the world do you need nice clothes for? Why should that come from the state? She said to him, so that I should present myself nicely before, and I shouldn't be embarrassed for you and from your friends and so on and so forth. So therefore, it's nice for the state that I should look like a mensch. Anyway, Mishnah said you give her a bed, and you also give her mats, a soft mat and a hard mat made of reeds. What did you give her all these kinds of mats for? You gave her a bed. A bed in those days was basically made of a hide of an animal, and it was very comfortable. The other ready, what do you have to give more of these extra mats for? I'm going to pop it up the place that he get the This is a place where the beds were not made out of that leather, that nice leather that was stretched from totally, and therefore you were able to sleep. This is ropes, and ropes to sleep on ropes is very difficult. Therefore, you need a mattress above that made out of mat. So let me learn. Ain't nice in the car, they don't give her a cushion and a blanket mission. You don't give her that. That's extra. You don't have to give from the state. You can't force them. They do give. So what are we talking about? Either the comment that they must have done with a cushion, a pillow, and linen. So my time is comment. Why not? And she's entitled to it. Nobody does it. My time and also says that she is. You do give it to her. We need you're going to urche di day v'lav urche di do. It's common for him, but not common for her. Tanakama holds. Amala, he says to her, we're talking about the responsibilities of a husband to wife when the wife and the husband were not together. Yeah, we're talking about with his, all of it. He gave it to a third party to take care of her needs. She lived elsewhere. So he says, Ki azilna, when I come to your house, shekilnalu. Whenever we're together, yes, I have to bring it with me. So I'll take it with me and I'll bring it with me. When I come to you, I will. When I leave your house, I'll take it back with me. When I come to you, I'll bring it with me. So therefore, no problem. But I'm not saying she can argue back. That's what Tanakama says. You don't have to bring it. And Ramnasan says, she says to him, Zimrin, sometimes in Misrami Ben Hashmosh, you come Friday night. Ben Hashmosh is twilight is always the only, Rashi said a few places, the only time that makes it's really significant is on a Friday night. The Lemotz is nice, a little too late. By the time you come in Shabbos already, you cannot bring it with you. And obviously, you didn't have an Erev in that town. And you come to my house, you'll take everything that I have because they're yours. You make me sleep on the floor. So therefore, you have to provide her with that cushion and everything else. Yeah. So my brother, the nice little kippah, he gives also this little kerchief and gives also like a belt just around the loins. It says there that shoes you have to give her you buy her clothes once a year, and shoes you have to give her every Yom Tov and so on. So if you want to think, it's very odd. Shoes you make such a big deal out of, and clothes not. Hi. Tana shliach hatuloi. It's this Tana wants to send her out naked. Rami misanei, because he walks around naked, only wears a pair of shoes. Clothes only once a year. He says he's buying new clothes, but shoes you have to buy every Yom Tov. As if the main focus is shoes and clothes doesn't matter. You can walk around naked. It doesn't make sense. This Tana happens to be living in a place which is very mountainous and full of rocks. He needs 3 pairs of shoes a year because the shoes they get worn out from all the rocks and everything else in the mountains, and therefore you have to buy it every year. And the Tana is trying to teach you is obviously everything's relative, but he's trying to teach you is that the best time to buy. And by the way, Kamash will teach you the best time to do it is on Yom Tov. We already learned that a person has to be sameach his wife and buy her new clothes. So the best time is Yom Tov. So she increase her simcha on Yom Tov. The kelim you have to get clothes. The value of 50 zuz. What kind of? We already learned last time. There's different kinds of zuz or dinanim. There's Misel Medina and the Sela Tzuri. Sela Tzuri, we said, is all silver, so its value was 8 times that of the Sela Medina, the local one, which is only 1/8 of it was silver. The rest are different alloys. So how much coins are we talking about here? Amar Abai says Chamishim Zuzi Pshit. We're talking about 50 ordinary coins, which is 1/8 of the value of Monotzuri. Yeah. But how do we know it's talking about the low? Maybe it means the 50, the dinner and the Tsuri one. It was very simply. The Mishnah concludes, if you remember, the Mishnah concludes that this is only talking about an impoverished person, so these are the minimum. But if somebody's wealthier, they have to give commensurate to your wealth. But if somebody is poor man, somebody who's honorable, or somebody who has more means, you have to take care of your wife according to your status. Not the East. If you tell me that Chamishim dinner means of Salat Suri, coins. And now, then we also said you don't give her new clothes in the summer and
I think we lost you for a few moments.
Sorry?
I think we lost you for a few moments.
Where did you lose me? Where did you lose me?
In the last 30 seconds. I don't know if Merv had that problem too. Maybe it was my reception. I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem. In a nutshell, the Gemara is talking about what kind of coins. Okay, so we're saying in concluding, it must be the cheaper coins. It's the local coin, because if it's the Tsuri coin, which is 8 times the value, multiple 8, how in the world would a poor person be able to afford that? And so because we're mandating that every person, no matter how poor you are, you have to give this to your wife, then obviously we're talking about something which even a poor person can afford. Then the Mishnah said, the ain't nice in law loy chadashi. We don't give new clothes in the summer and old clothes in winter, the other way around. In the winter, give new clothes when it's thick and protects her from the harsh elements, and in the summer it's very worn out and it's thinner and everything else doesn't matter because there's a breeze and it's warm. So Torah we learned, let's say. Whatever the Mishnah says that the amount of food you give her, but she doesn't eat so much. She has excess food. What happens to that excess food? Lebal, that goes back to the husband. Moisa beloy is if you give her extra clothes. Leisha, that goes to the woman. Says the Gemara, Moisa beloy is Leisha lamala. This extra clothing which is sort of fading away. Why give it to her? What she can do with it? She uses it while she when she dons it. She dons it when she is in nida. Well, anyway, she has no relations with the husband. When she is available to her husband, she's not going to wear these clothes, which are not complimentary or flattering at all to her. But when she's in nida anyway, she doesn't matter. She wears it, and in fact, it's a benefit to wear it then, so the husband would be interested in her at all during that time. Otherwise, like we learned, when it comes, however, to a widow, her leftover clothes, even the blois, those clothes are fading away. Liyoshev, they don't go to her, they go to the heirs. Why? Over there, we gave a good reason why you should go to the wife, so she wears a wash because during the rest of the year, we want her to be appealing to her husband. Over here, tizgani. Who cares? Who cares if she is wear what do you call it? Let her be embarrassed. We don't care. We don't have to. We don't need her to wear nice clothes for the Yarshim, so it doesn't matter. Okay, saying more further, nice and more kesef. If he gives her that stipend and so on and so forth, we learned that he gets the excess of her earnings. And then we said they should eat together every Friday night. Now, what does eating together mean? Is it a euphemism or it means literally? Maya chelas, we need to eat together every Friday night. I'm not considered chelas mamash. The mamash eat together, like I told you, Shagidari says that you have to eat together Friday nights. And Rav Ashi Amar, and Rav Ashi says, tashmish, it means it's a euphemism for relations. Tonight we learned Eichelis Imay says in the Brisa they eat together or Eichelis with him Leile Shabbos, the nights of Shabbos. So Mishlam Machila Hank on Eichelis eating. Elamanda Tashmish means relations. What kind of word is eating? So it says it's a euphemism. Lishna Ma'alia. They're just being nice, speaking in an elegant way. It says she ate Mechata she wipes her mouth. She says Lepalti of it. I did nothing wrong. So it says the word achla there is talking about intimacy. Meisvei, let me ask a question. It says Hashim argues. He says they should eat together, not only Leila Shabbos Ima with him, but Leila Shabbos and Shabbos by day. And by day. Means eating Hainton Shabbos. Because you have a mitzvah to eat meals on Shabbos, so Friday night you should eat together and Shabbos by day you should eat together. Of course, it's not only Friday night, by day as well. You have to eat together. But how can be tashma during the day? Huna said that the Jewish people are very sacred, and the ein mishamshim meet the same begin, but generally don't have intimacy during the day. So Gemara says during the day means broad daylight. Rava said the bias offer, but if you make the room dark, mutter is permitted. So it sounds like from the Gemara here that since it's permitted Shabbos by day and Tamid Chama, when we say Friday night, we don't only mean Friday night, we mean Shabbos by day as well. Because if it doesn't mean that you have a mitzvah Shabbos by day, just you're allowed to, so why does the Mishnah say, and they should eat? The Mishnah is saying that this is what an obligation. You need to be oichel together Friday night, and Hashemullah says, and Shabbos by day. If all it means is, if the way we're learning now, it means tashmish, and you're allowed to by day if you made the room dark, what's Hashemullah saying? And you should. So obviously he holds, according to the one who says it means tashmish, that by day also they have to. Anyway, Bimha Manika, and if she was nursing. Now it's interesting. We had a whole Gemara before about that you have to, provide for your kids, and we said providing for your kids, and so on and so forth. It just shows you how the Gemara is never complete in one place. You always have to go through the whole Shas to find bits and pieces to complement the other Gemaras we learned. Because here the Gemara says something we didn't have there. Dorash Rabba Ula Rabba was standing and dashing a pitzcha in the sea in the house of the doorway of the house of the Nasi. Afa Pisham, even though we learned ain't Adam Zon as Bonav of Benaisav, Kisheng Tanim, it's not mandatory to feed your children when they're young. Tani, but very young, you have to feed your children. You have an obligation to feed your children. Once they're over a certain age, it's a tzedakah. And remember we had before, we cajoled people who were rich. We sort of tried to force them, cajole them into giving, and up to a certain age again. And then beyond that, it's just a mitzvah tzedakah. Ad kamas, until what age do you have to support your kids? Ad ben sheish, until the age of 6 years old. A cotton was 6 years old can be yaitze with the heir of his mother. We're talking about an heir of tchumen, and let's say the mother decided to go north and she made food there. The father decided to go south and he placed food over there. Which one does the kid go with? It goes with the mother. Why? Because a young kid needs the mother a lot more than they need the father. So what do we see from here? That till 6 years old, the kid is totally dependent on the mother. And just like the husband has to provide for the wife, he has to provide for the wife's children, which is his children. How do you know? It says, how do we know that? Because it says, we learned in our Mishnah, if she was, remember we learned a certain obligation she has for the husband. If she was nursing, we deduct the time. We say the value of 5, the weight of 5 slayim of wool. But if, let's say, she's nursing, then she doesn't have that much time. Maybe it's only 4 slayim of wool, depending on how much time it consumes. So we see that feeding her children takes off from her obligation to him, which obviously means that he has an obligation to take care of the children, and therefore she has every right to do that. Furthermore, we add more food. And why are we adding more food? Obviously, so to feed to the children. So we see clearly from here that you have an obligation to feed your little kids. My time, because the kid has to eat as well with the mother. So that's not a proof. But maybe all this extra food is only for her, because maybe when she's nursing, she feels weak, so she needs extra food. So no, listen. If you're talking about someone that was sick, then just say that if you have to be sick, you have to give her extra. Why is the Mishnah say if she was nursing? If the whole point is that you have to give her extra food because she is sick, then say if she was sick, you give her extra food. Said no. Maybe the Mishnah is trying to tell you that Stamanika is trying to make us aware that every woman who's nursing generally is weaker, and therefore you have to be considerate and give her extra food. So there's no proof from our Mishnah one way or another, even though the halacha might be correct, but there's no proof. You actually have to give them a wine. Wine somehow or another it improves the taste of the milk or the flow of the milk, and therefore it's a good thing to have wine. So after all, we had a discussion before whether you give women a wine or not, or whether you give it to their food. We didn't mention a word that if she's a nursing mother, wine would be beneficial. Anyway, Hadin Aloch Afapi. Now goes the next parak. Mitzias Isha Tesa brings down. Not everybody agrees that this is the next parak. That according to some, the next parak is actually the 7th parak, not the 6th parak. The next parak is Hamadir. But nevertheless, we have it now. Maria Mitzias Isha is next. And we're going to talk about this parak about dowries and promises that Chotani make, that they have to, this is one of the only exceptions that even if you don't make a transaction, you're still bound by the promises that you make. Says the Mishnah, Metzias Isha, whatever, the findings of a woman who might see down her earnings, the baila, they all go to a husband. Remember, he had before the brisa. In place of that, he has to take care of medical bills, that he has to free her if she's taken captive, he has to bury her, all those things. So therefore, in return, she has things that she has to give to the husband. So she finds something, goes to the husband, earning to the husband, the Yerushasa, and if she brings in an inheritance, let's say while they're married, she gets an inheritance. Who Eichel paid us, even though it's hers, but he takes care of it, so therefore he gets the earnings, and the field itself is hers. That's Rashi's first shot, and so on. Rashi's second shot is that if she dies, her husband takes over all of her properties. The Chayeh, while he's alive, he eats the fruits while he's alive. But Tesha says if you learn that it's talking about Virushasa, after she died, he yashes her, then what do you call it? Instead of the kids, then who Eichel paid as Bechayah is a separate halach altogether. That's separate in that if she brings the properties in, he takes care of it, but he gets the earnings. What happens if somebody strikes somebody? If somebody strikes somebody, you have to pay 5 different. We have before this nezik, pay the damage, tsar, and the pain, ripui, medical bills, and sheves, and the fact that you're unemployed, the boishes and the shame. So it says over here that boishta, when it comes to boishes, upagama, when it comes to the fact that she was hurt, and who gets that? So shalom, that's hers. That's her. Sheves, if she's unemployed, that goes to the husband because all her earnings anyway go to the husband. So the fact that she can't work, who's affected by it? The husband is. But when it comes to shame, it's her shame, according to Tanakama. And when it comes to the fact that she was hurt, it's her hurt. So she's entitled to all that money. Rabbi Yehuda ben Seder says he's also affected by it. So Bisman if let's say that whatever it is that it was hurt in a place that it was concealed, then Loshnei Chalakim, she's hurt most, so she gets 2/3 of the money. And he gets 1/3 of the money. Or Bisman Shebegoli, if let's say the shame, let's say something happened here, and the shame is very apparent, so he's affected by it as well. That he's embarrassed to walk with her in public, whatever it is. And furthermore, that he finds it difficult to have a relationship, it's impacting on the relationship, then he's entitled to 2/3, she's entitled to 1. Shaloi Yinosim his entitlement gets straight away. Vishalon on her Yilka ben Karka, because while she's married, we had everything that she has, you buy property with it, and he works with it, and he gets the dividends. Who and he gets the dividends. He gets all the dividends. First of all, what's the point of the Mishnah about Matthias Isha Ma'aseh L'Bayis? We learned before. Tanina, didn't we learn that before already when we talked about the different obligations they have for each other? It says there, furthermore, father Zakai, but Bita, your father has rights in his daughter, Bikidusha, when she's a Tana, and then Naira to marry her off, Bikesa Shtarabia, when it comes to these 3 ways. Zakai B'Mitzias, the father is entitled to findings of Ma'aseh and earnings, and he can annul her vows. Mekabelas Gita receives her get from engagement. But he does not eat. If this girl inherits something from her mother, he does not eat the dividends from that property. However, Nisa, she got married. Yes, the husband has additional entitlements over the father. In addition, whatever the father has, he also has. But he also, if she brings in properties, if she yards, whatever is during the marriage, it's her property, but he works it and he gets the dividends. So we read clearly from here that we already learned from this Mishnah that the husband is entitled to all of her findings and all of her earnings. So why does this Mishnah have to repeat it? So we answer the Chiddush, but this Mishnah is novel. What it introduces is Boishto Pagami. The Chiddush here is that the money that she's entitled to because she was ashamed or that she was hurt, that's what the Mishnah comes to teach you. Plukta de Rabbi Yehuda b'Msei Rabbanan, that dispute between Rabbi Yehuda and Msei Rabbanan, that's new in this Mishnah. So while we brought that, we already brought the rest of it as well. Okay, we continue tomorrow.